Great. Well, again, honestly, I sincerely mean this. On behalf of the Chancellor's Office, thank you so much for taking this extra time to learn more about Difference Maker. How many of you have set up a team on the Difference Maker website? A few? Okay, and how many of you are waiting to file your application until you learn more? A couple? Okay. All right, great. So we're hopefully going to answer a lot of these questions for you tonight. As we get started, I'll just give you a quick overview of our plan for this evening. Come on. So 6:30, quick overview, some introductions. From 6:30 to 7, I'll talk a little bit about a problem. So we have this workshop divided into 4 sections. Tonight we're going to talk about identifying problems, what makes a good problem and such. And then we're going to spend a little time addressing team building. Excellent. We're shooting for 50 applications, okay? So we had 40 last year. We're shooting for 50 this year, so get those applications in. We have a couple of weeks to go, so applications are due the 24th. That's the deadline. And so I'm assuming that some of you are here tonight to learn a little bit more about the process before you decide. But if you have questions about your application, about what type of information we need, who should be on a team, what is the Idea Challenge all about, some of those will be answered tonight. But the fellows that you met and the students and the staff that work on Difference Maker, they can help answer those questions as well. So we don't want you to leave without any unanswered questions. So the good news is, I looked at those, the 25 the other day, and so we have representation from all 6 colleges. Difference Maker is an interdisciplinary extracurricular program, meaning that we work across the college. It's not just business, it's not just engineering, it's nursing and science and community psychology and education and all the different disciplines. And we want to engage all of you in this venture of creating a problem or creating a solution that can be sustained. And the Idea Challenge is actually about giving you the money you need to implement that solution and move it forward. I've looked at what has been posted so far. I see that there are some people proposing new products. There are groups proposing services. There are groups proposing nonprofit solutions, fighting for causes. That's all part of this program. We will set up categories that will give all of you an equal opportunity to succeed and to win money in the challenge based on what area you're competing in. So thank all of you for getting involved in this. And now we'll talk a little bit about just what you've gotten yourself into. 9 weeks to the Idea Challenge. So the Idea Challenge, the finals are on April 15th. I've already been meeting with development. So I may have mentioned this during the kickoff. Most of the money that supports Difference Maker is donated by alumni. And alumni, actually, oh, Holly, wait till you see. I got a nice letter from development today. We have some more money. So this is money that alumni contribute to the university. And they're very excited about this program because they're excited about supporting you all and moving your ventures forward. And they want to see you be successful and succeed. So right now, we said it was a $25,000 Idea Challenge. I think we're actually going to have at least $35,000 that we'll be giving away on April 15th. And then they actually contribute more. They contribute closer to $65,000. Some of that money is spent to pay students who work for Difference Maker. Some of it's spent on the events and things like that. But right now we're looking at probably cash prizes that we'll give out, probably somewhere in the vicinity of $35,000. So we're pretty excited about that. So when you see alumni at events, make sure you thank them. We're working on the judge list. There are 2 big events that you have to concern yourself with. The first is on April 4th, and that is the preliminary pitch-off. So at that point, we will invite most of the teams that come in and file an application and then file an idea plan. We'll invite them to pitch their idea to a panel of alumni judges. That event, I believe, we're looking at 2:30 to 6 on the 4th. From 2:30 to 6 across the street at the ETIC Center, we'll have the preliminary pitch contest. We'll have 4 or 5 rooms with judges, with judging going on simultaneously. We'll probably have somewhere in the vicinity of 15 alumni judges broken out amongst those 5 rooms. And at the end of that event, we'll announce the teams that are being invited into the final. We anticipate approximately 10 teams will be invited into the finals. The finals will be on April 15th, and that's when we actually will award the prize money. Everybody who pitches in the preliminary will be recognized. You'll receive a certificate of recognition, and those of you that actually take part in these workshops will also be recognized for that. So you'll get some sort of certificate acknowledging the time and effort you've put into this, and that's something that the Chancellor and Executive Vice Chancellor think is really important, and they say, let's make sure we recognize people for what they're doing. So what do you have to do over the next couple of weeks? You have to build your team. You have to prepare get your application submitted. What's the deadline, for applications? February 24th. So, and that's relatively simple, and if you're not sure where to do that, we can show you where that needs to be done. You need to do some research. So tonight we're going to talk about problems. The next workshop is on opportunities, identifying opportunities. Let me just find, I have a little post-it here with all my notes. So tonight we'll talk about identifying problems. The next workshop talks about assessing opportunities. And I'll kind of walk through what each of these workshops are about. The idea is to help you develop your idea plan and your rocket pitch. Anybody know what a rocket pitch is? All right, a couple of you. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about that a little later. The deliverables, right, what you have to deliver after you file your application by March 28th, you have to submit your idea plan, and we'll have a sample online that you can actually look at. It's about a 2-page document, both sides, that talks about the problem you're addressing, the opportunity, the solution you propose, and the resources you need to move it forward. You'll do a short slide presentation. Last year it was 3 minutes. We're probably going to expand it to 5 minutes because the judges want more time with you. So we'll probably have a 5-minute pitch that you will do to the judges. And you'll also do a poster, probably a 2-by-3 foot poster that we'll print for you to put up at the events. We're also providing all the teams that actually submit an application that in an idea plan, we're going to create an ePortfolio website so you can actually promote your venture on this ePortfolio website. And Michael's been very busy at developing a simple template that allow you to talk about what your project is, who's on your team, all online. And that's something that the judges are interested in seeing, and it's a way that you can promote what you've done. And when you leave here, and how many of you are seniors? A few, okay. So how many of you are graduating? I hope all the same hands go up. Okay, just checking. I just want to make sure. So even when you graduate here, you'll be able to show employers what you've done. So the idea with the ePortfolio, it allows you to show people what you've done in a tangible online format. So we'll be talking more about that at a future workshop. And then most importantly, you want to impress the judges. First meeting, so very impressive group. Okay, so I had mentioned there were 4 workshops. The workshops are not required, but they are strongly recommended. The team that won Campus-Wide Difference Maker and $5,000 last year was at every workshop, and we found that out because when we went to make a nice video capturing what had happened last year, we found we had footage of them at every event. And what we will do with these workshops is kind of talk you through the elements of the idea plan and the rocket pitch. So the idea is to prep you for that. And it's also, last year was the first year we did this. The second year, we have feedback from the judges, so we have a pretty good idea of what the judges are looking for. So that's something we can help you with. So tonight, we'll talk about the problem. So we have this model: problem, opportunity, solution, feasibility, and resources. So tonight, we'll talk a little bit about picking a good problem, defining that problem, researching that problem, finding a problem that matters. Our next meeting is on, I want to make sure these dates are correct. That's not correct. I fixed this already too. Oh, there we go. Slide's doing something funny on me here. Let me do that again. There we go. The next session, February 19th, we'll look at identifying the opportunity associated with solving your problem. In order for you to come up with a good solution, you need to know what the opportunity is associated with that solution and problem. So who's affected by it? How many people? Who are they people? What are their needs? So we'll spend some time at the next workshop talking about where do you find that information? How do you find that information? The judges want to know. They want to know that you have a problem that's important, that people care about, that matters, and then they want to know that you know something about the people that are affected by it. Because basically, whether you're doing a nonprofit or a social organization or a product or a new company, you need to have people coming to you that want access to the service or product that you're providing or selling. And so the judges want to know that you know something about those people and that you've talked to them. In fact, I'm going to give you some homework tonight. I am a professor. We do that. Solution on February 24th, we'll talk to you about framing your solution. So how do you put together a solution that's in the scope of the program in a way that the judges listen to you and they feel like, hey, this is something that you could actually accomplish. This is something that if we give you $3,000 or $1,500 or $5,000, it'll actually have an impact and help you to move forward. We're also looking for sustainable solutions. Typically, the focus, what we're really looking for, have you all heard about service learning? Some of you have done service learning. Some of you have done volunteer work. The challenge sometimes with volunteer work, right, particularly when it's associated with a class, is you do it once, you might do it one weekend or 1 week, but then it ends. So part of what we're trying to do with Difference Maker, and the reason we're putting up this money, is so that you can develop problems or solutions that are sustainable, that can carry on over time. So for example, Aldo had a company, you won first to market last year with the Grab-A-Bite, and that's a company that's sort of merged with another company, is continuing on with. The team that did the prosthetic device that grows, they won Campus-Wide Difference Maker. They've now formed an LLC. They've raised another $20,000, and they're looking to develop that and maintain it. We had one group, a nursing group actually, that had a great idea for doing some work with high school students, but when they graduated, they were really too busy to carry the idea forward, so then they shared it with some community health students. And so those community health students are now putting energy into the idea. So the goal here is to take these ideas, help you to realize them and implement them and get them started, and then to sustain them. So we'll talk about that. And then finally, resources. How many of you ever asked somebody for $5,000? I know you have. A few of you, huh? A couple. So asking people for money is an art, right? It's a skill. It takes practice. And oftentimes, people aren't even sure, wow, $5,000, what are we going to do with that? Well, so let me tell you right now, as Aldo will attest, nobody gets a blank check, right? We're not going to give you a blank check. But what we will do if you win, we'll sit down with you and say, okay, and we'll let you draw and spend that money, as long as it's on things that are associated with moving that venture forward. And so part of what we want to help you to think about is, what are you going to spend that money on? Because the judges want to know that. Before they give you $5,000, they're going to want to know, well, is the money going to have an impact, and how are you going to spend it? So we'll help you think that through, especially if you've never asked people for money before. So that's basically what we'll be doing over the next 4 workshops. So earlier I asked if anybody had heard of rocket pitch, the term. Now, I know you've done a rocket pitch before, so do you want to tell folks what a rocket pitch is?
Yeah, absolutely. Explain your idea in a way in 3 to 5 minutes to capture the problem, opportunity, solution, and how you're going to call to action, how you're going to make your idea solve that problem. And yeah.
Is it hard to do?
It's very hard to do. I remember when I was getting my rocket pitch ready for you guys, I was like, okay, this is going to be small, you know, whatever. My first draft was like about 7 minutes. So, you know, then I had to go back to the drawing board, and really 3 minutes, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, because you want to talk about your idea forever. But this makes you really get down to the basics of what your idea really is and how it's going to make an impact.
And did you get some coaching on that?
I got some great coaching on that.
From who?
The Difference Makers.
So we did. We'll give you some. We're actually going to set up some rocket pitch coaching sessions as well. So that, which we urge you to attend, and the faculty fellows will be very helpful in that. So you'll get a chance to pitch your idea. Somebody in this room before the event, and then you'll get some feedback on that. So the rocket pitch, as Kevin explained, basically, what is the problem you're addressing? Who's affected by that problem? What is their pain, right? Why is it important to solve this problem? What's the opportunity? Demonstrate your knowledge regarding the opportunity associated. How big, how many people, who are they? What are their spending habits? How's that problem currently being addressed? Your solution, what's your proposed solution? What value does your solution provide? Why will people take this solution from you versus somebody else? And then a call to action. What do you want? How will you use the funds? That's your ask, right? You're going to ask. I need $5,000 in order to pursue patent protection, or to buy the materials, or to travel to Rwanda to learn more about the orphans that were, the children that were orphaned during the genocide there. And those are projects, those are things that people from last year spent this money on. I'll do a sample rocket pitch, not this evening, but I'll do a sample one for you. Okay, so let's talk about a problem. I'm going to talk for about 10 more minutes, maybe 5, we'll see. If John starts to fall asleep, then I will stop talking. Let me get focused there again. Okay, the problem. So let me talk to you a little bit about the problem. 60, that's wonderful. So the first aspect of the problem to think about is it has to be a problem that you care about, right? It has to be important to you. The reason it has to be important to you is because you're going to spend a lot of time. No one's paying you to be here, right? You all have exams and jobs, family, you have other things you could be doing right now. And we're going to ask you not only to put in a lot of work over the next 2 months, but if you're funded, you're going to put in a lot more work to bring this idea. So it has to be something that you care about, right? So think about that when you're thinking about the problem. And when you're thinking about joining a team, right? Joining a team, you're making a commitment to helping somebody solve a problem. And so you want to care about it so that you have the energy to move it forward. Typically, the problems have some social importance. Now, we define that pretty broadly for Difference Maker, right? Because we're a big tent group, right? We want everybody involved, every discipline. But typically, the ideas that capture people's attention are ideas that are solutions that will affect something that they personally care about or familiar with, or something that has some social importance. So it could be something like the bringer technology that Aldo's working on, which is how many of you have lost your cell phone or lost your car keys or lost that ugly shirt you really don't want to find. And it's a way of finding those things. So that's something that we can personally connect with. And then there are things of broader social significance, like prosthetic devices for children in developing nations who've lost a limb due to an explosion or a mine. And so there's a whole range, but having a problem that you can quickly explain and that other people could understand the importance of it quickly without a lot of explanation is important. Because remember, you're going to have 5 minutes to pitch this idea. So a problem that matters to you, a problem that other people can quickly understand, a problem that elicits multiple perspectives. So one of the challenges we find with this is people often come to Difference Maker with a solution, but they haven't thought of all aspects of the problem. And if you haven't looked at the problem, say, from different perspectives, so an engineer looks at a problem one way, a nurse probably looks at that problem differently, a business person looks at that problem a third way. Our disciplines and backgrounds and life experiences shape the way we look at problems and the way we try to solve problems and the types of solutions we come up with. If the goal is to come up with the best solution, then you really need to have different perspectives. So you want a problem where you can look at it from different perspectives when you're trying to solve it. You want a problem that has a tangible solution, right? Because what you want to do is come up with something like, if you were to say, well, I really want to change the division in government in the U.S. between the Republican and the Democratic Party. That has a lot of social importance. It's something that's very relevant, but it may take you a lifetime to solve that problem. It doesn't mean it's not important, but it might be too big a problem to tackle. So sometimes you got to carve those problems down into manageable ways so that you can come up with a tangible solution that you can use $5,000 or $3,000 or $1,500 to address. And then finally, a problem that maps to some of the award categories. So this is a benefit that you have this year that the students who did this last year didn't have, because we were kind of making it up as we went along, like a good entrepreneur, right? None of the problems stopped us. We figured out, we moved forward. But when we met with everybody last February, we didn't know what the award categories were going to be. We figured that out sometime in April, I think probably a week or two before the event. But this year we know what award categories we'll have. So first of all, we had campus-wide Difference Maker. And when I was in the room with the judges on the night of the finals, they had listened to all the pitches, and they asked me, they said, so Steve, tell me, what is the campus-wide Difference Maker? And I said to them, campus-wide Difference Maker is the team, and the judges were all alumni, right? So they really value your work, they value this institution. And I said to them, it is the team that you would feel proud standing up in front of 100 people and saying to them, that team is campus-wide Difference Maker from UMass Lowell. So it's some type of, and in this case it was the Developing Nation prosthetic team, which was developing an arm that can be extended for kids in developing countries who've lost an arm for a prosthetic. So it was social value. It showed good application of the coursework. The team had done a nice job. And all the 7 judges unanimously said, yeah, we would be proud to say that. So that's a tip on campus-wide difference maker. Now, we set up some categories here. And the idea behind these categories is that you all come from different disciplines, and you have certain skills and interests and expertise. And we want to give folks from the different colleges and different disciplines an equal opportunity to win first place. So these each have a first place and a second place prize. So contribution to a sustainable environment is pretty straightforward. So if you have a solution that addresses improvements in the environment in a sustainable way, that's probably the category you'd be considered for. Last year, the winners were Lowell Sprouts Let's Grow Lowell. Lowell Sprouts had created a community garden for children at the Butler Middle School, and they actually teamed up with a team that was developing rooftop garden. Hybrid Power Trike was a hybrid trike for kids with some disabilities, but the idea was that it used hybrid power as well. And let me just be clear, I stumbled a little on that. The judges fudge these categories a little bit, right? So if they see the teams, they're going to try to figure out who fits in where. But generally, these are the categories we're working with. First to market, so this is the solution or product that looks like it's just ready to go. And in that case, Grab a Bite won that category. I believe it was it $3,500? Yeah, was first prize, and $1,500 was second prize. So these were 2 groups that actually pretty much had a product up and running, and they just needed some small investment to help move it forward. In innovative technology, so this is a new type of technology innovation, something that captures people's attention, that solves a problem. The 2 teams, robotic feeding arm was Phil Colangelo, who's now a graduate student, and basically it was just that. It was a robotic arm that could feed people with disabilities who couldn't pick up a spoon or a fork. And he's doing a lot of interesting things with that technology. And then Natoja was developing a technology-based system for collecting notes and data and doing research for students. And then significant social impact. So a project that would have a significant social impact different than the sustainable environment. And the 2 winners were Healthy Habits. Healthy Habits were the nursing students who were developing a project that looked at healthy eating habits for high school students. And then Bright Future Generation, Vanessa Colombo's project was looking at developing a way to help the kids who were orphaned in the genocide in Rwanda. So that kind of gives you, there's a range, right? Technology, social, environmental, there's really a range of categories here so that different ideas will have a chance to move forward. Any questions about those categories? edu/difference maker. You look on the left, there's a link, Idea Challenge. Is resources under Idea Challenge or is it on the main tab?
No, it's under Idea Challenge.
It's under Idea Challenge. So if you click on resources, the slides, the recording, all this material will be put up there for you. And this handout, if you didn't get a copy of the handout will be there. Or you can email Hara Hawley and they will send it to you. But on that handout is a kind of a worksheet to help you work through some of this material. So you want to be able to clearly state the problem that you're solving. Who's affected by the problem? And I have underscored, right? Specifics count here, right? So I'm a business prof. I co-direct the medical device incubator on campus. I work with lots of startups. I work with a lot of student startups as well as high-tech startups. I sat through a lot of pitches where people tell me, it's a $10 billion market and we're going to capture 5%, so we're going to be rich. And then I'll ask them, well, who is the market? And in the case of a medical device, it's somebody with a disability. Well, that's really broad, right? What kind of disability? Where do they live? Who are they? In order to sell a product or service or deliver a product or service to people, you need to know really specifically who they are because you need to figure out what they need and how to reach them. So all of these problems and ideas that you share tonight, the first thing we're going to ask you to do is spend some time learning more about the people that will benefit from the solution or are affected by the problem that you're talking about. How important is the problem to solve, right? So is it really an important problem to solve, or if people don't care about solving the problem, you're not going to gain support. You won't gain investors. You won't gain institutional support. So you need to think about that. And then keep track of details and think about where do you find this information. And there's basically a couple of ways, right? You do research, you can do online research, but you also have to talk to people. How many of you like to talk to people? How many of you like to talk to strangers? Even though your mother might say no. Good. So every team, right? Every team should have at least 1 or 2 people on that team who likes to talk to people, because that's how you're going to find out the answers to these problems. Now, I was going to have you do this activity, and instead I think what we'll do is we'll probably assign it for homework, because we took some time to go around. What I'd like you to think about, and this is what this worksheet does, is ask you, what is the problem you wish to solve? And writing things down is important, right? You can't keep it all in your head, right? Sometimes I run into idea people, right? They have a lot of ideas. An idea is worthless. You can't just patent this idea, right? You have to turn it into something tangible, right? So you got to put it down on paper. Even to do a patent, you have to put it down on paper. So you have to take the time, the discipline, to do the research and to write this down and learn about it. So what is the problem you wish to solve? Who's affected by it? How significant? All these questions are right here in this worksheet. So what we'd like you to do before the next workshop is get a copy. If you don't have a copy, get a copy of this workshop and fill it out. Sit down with your group and fill it out and see if you agree, right? If you already have a team, does everybody agree, or do you have differences, different perspectives on it? So where can you find some of these answers? So first of all, we have a great electronic library resource here at the university. It's a pretty incredible resource. So we got, and I was going to put down specific databases, but they vary based on whether you're researching a health problem, or you're researching a business problem, or a technical problem. So my advice to you is fill out this first page, and then go see one of the reference librarians. Donna Mullen is a business and technology reference librarian. She can really help you find some of these answers. There are some databases that will allow you to go in and find out who's affected, how big is that market, how many people are affected with Alzheimer's disease, what is their age, what's the research on that. You need those answers in order to come up with a good solution. So certainly our electronic library most likely has probably 50 to 70%, probably 50% of the answers you need. You can use resources online like Google and that sort of thing, but there's a lot of very detailed information available through the library. The other thing is you need to talk to people. And so I think what we're suggesting here for homework is that each team talks to 25 people. 25 people, not the people on your team, other people, right, by the next workshop. Talk to those people, develop a list of 5 to 10 questions. They may be some of these questions, right? How are they affected? How long have they been affected? How else have they tried to address that problem? Record their answers. This is invaluable. Basically, you're doing market research, right? It's going to help you to make a better solution to the problem. Write down these simple questions. What bothers people most about the problem? Maybe there's something about a problem that you don't, some aspect that you don't understand that they can shed light onto. And 25 sounds like a lot of people, right? It is. But it's only the start of this process, right? It's the way you're going to get a good picture and come up with a good solution. Who else has attempted to solve the problem? Very important. What solutions are there? Oftentimes, several times I've had inventors come to us and say, listen, I've got this ideal solution. The point stick guys that were doing this stick to align people's back, right? Well, there was already a company with a patent. There was already somebody else selling it. It doesn't mean there's not a business opportunity there, but you really have to pay attention to those things. So I'm going to leave you with some homework. You have the sheet. And so my suggestion is to spend the time to do this. And when you come back to the next workshop, when we talk about opportunity assessment, I'm going to ask you about these questions. I'm going to ask you what you learned by talking to people. Okay? Any questions? Yes.
But every time you get together, you need to continue to build on that foundation of knowing one another. So it's the personal relationships that are just as important to team success as is coming up with the solution. You with me? See, I don't want you to waste your time. I want you to invest in each other even as you move through the steps that Steve outlined. As you go from a problem to a solution to the pitch, You should always be working and mindful of building a foundation of personal relationships upon which you can criticize one another with an open, honest sense that it's all for the betterment of the team. Can't do that unless you know each other and you trust each other. And if you can't critique one another, you can't get to the richest and most robust solution. Because that only happens when you're able to build on each other's ideas. And building on each other's ideas as a foundation of criticism. Ever so gently, but openly and honestly. So work on your personal relationships. The last thing that I'd ask you to keep in mind, make a contract with each other. There's so many competing demands that you all have for your time. You need to figure out how we're going to work together. If you figure out how you're going to work together as a team, if you write that down, then you can hold each other to the contract. And any disagreement is not personal. You can point to the contract that we made together. And once you make a contract in terms of when we're going to meet, when we're going to stop, when we're going to stop, about living up to commitments, about one conversation at a time, about respecting one another. As you make that contract together and you hold each other accountable, you are protecting your long-term relationship. You are protecting your long-term relationship. If you don't have a contract, if you don't write it down, here's what happens. Bad behavior occurs. Someone comes in late. Someone leaves early. Someone doesn't do what they said they were going to do. Your instinct, because you're all nice people, is to let it slide and hope it doesn't happen again. If you don't confront it gently, respectfully, in the way you would want to be corrected, if you don't confront it, there's no reason for the individual to change their behavior. And if that bad behavior continues, team members get frustrated and it destroys the relationship. If you care about the relationship, it's important that you have zero tolerance for bad behavior. When I say criticize someone or call their attention to bad behavior, do it in the way that you would want it done for you. Respectfully. Do it in a way that strengthens the relationship. But if you let it slide, you put the relationship at risk over time. Right? So here's what I want you to keep in mind. Keep in mind the importance of writing down the problem statement. And is it going to change? Yes, it's going to change. Yes, it's going to change, but change it together and change it formally. Always have it written down. I want you to work on your personal relationships. It's just as important as working on the solution. If you don't work on those relationships, you're not going to get to trust one another. And if you don't trust each other, you can't criticize each other. And if you can't criticize each other, you can't get to the best solution. That only comes from building on one another. And that's the strength of teams. Make a contract on how you can work together. It is so important. Once you begin to move forward, it's important that the team becomes stronger and stronger and not begin to fragment, because that means you're wasting your time. And you are all very busy, and I know your time is precious, and I want to help you protect it. That's why I'm sharing with you my experiences on why teams fail. You with me? Steve says don't take shortcuts. Professor Teller knows from whence he speaks. That's experience, that's wisdom that's being imparted on you. And one thing about writing everything down and not taking shortcuts is it takes more time, but it is an investment in the long-term viability of the team. That's my 2 cents that I want to share with you. And I'd ask you to please keep those things in mind, because I want all of you to be successful, and I know how precious your time is. So I want to make sure you use it wisely. Okay?